Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today's card, I'm going to create a little snow scene of these little critters from a stamp set that I've had for a long time, but I haven't got around to using yet. And it's one of the Lawn Fawn stamp sets. And to create the background or the scene, I'm using the stitched Hillside backdrop in landscape, I believe. And I've got a couple of distress oxides that I'm going to use to colour in, if you will, the background. With the tumbled glass, which is a very pale blue, I'm going to create a very, very pale blue, almost, so that it gives the effect that there's a bit of sky there or a bit of snow on what would be the white areas, like you know, sky and snow would be. So, and I also wanted to create or keep the sort of framed edge that you do sort of get with this framed die. It's not actually a framed die, but there's a frame, as you can see, along the top edge. So I'm trying to replicate that on the bottom section. In the end, you can't really see that it's that different. So I could have just gone over the whole top portion of it as the sky, and the bottom half as the sort of snowy banks. It would have been just fine. So, but I liked the idea of having a bit of a frame around it, and so I decided to just use some washi tape around the edges, and then the bottom bit, I just kind of guessed the depth or the width of that sort of top frame section. I just eyeballed it. This is all gonna be white with the tumbled glass as a hint of colour, so it doesn't actually matter if it's not exactly perfect. So we're just kind of going with it. So to start with, I actually take the tumbled glass and then I smear it all over the glass mat, and then I drag it in slowly, because otherwise it would be too harsh of a blue line. I didn't want it to be that sort of very obvious blue edge. So that's another way. If you sort of ink up your brush tool or your foam tool or whatever you're using, and then just drag it in from your media mats onto the cardstock, and if you do it quite lightly, it'll come on in a very light fashion. If you want it really intense, then obviously you can go much heavier handed. So sky's the limit. And then for the section, there's another section of like Hillside, which I took another piece of cardstock and tucked it in the back of that, which it does die cut itself, and used that as just so that I didn't get blue ink on the rest of the hill. So there's just that edge of a hill rather than it being completely blue, because I'm trying to mimic snow. And also just a thing on that, on the adding a piece of cardstock in, make sure it's either a new piece or a piece that doesn't have a colour that might pick up you might pick up the ink from your tool or something like that, because I have done that before on another video. And it picked up whatever colour was on that. I think it's green on the other side, and it picked that edge up and actually made whatever I was inking a different colour. And then the piece that fits in, that actually die cuts out, that I'm using to inlay, I then edged with the same tumbled glass as well. Very easy, very, very easy to do. So this piece is the tree border dice. It's like a border die. I believe they now have a slimline version of this as well. And I die cut it out of the same cardstock. And I'm very carefully, because the little like tree trunks are really delicate, so I'm just very carefully getting the ink onto those trees, just so that there's a bit of something in the background. Just adds another layer to the card. And I'm not worried about the width of this. I will trim it down, you'll see that in a bit. But accidentally, when I was taking it out of the die, one of my trees just totally fell apart, came off in two pieces and broke off. So I will stick that back in. So you'll see that in a bit. That's why I was inking up these tiny little trees. Random, I know, but I needed them back in there. So, and the reason I couldn't just move the trees over is because the edge of this die actually follows the edge of this, the edge of the tree border, sorry, follows the edge of the landscape die, and you'll see that. So I needed the tree back. It's not like I could, if it was a straight line, I could kind of just move it along and not worry about the broken tree. But yeah, see, it's right on the right hand side there. It's totally missing. So I used some glue just to stick the trees to the back of this section. I don't know what to call this. It's not really a frame die, but it's like a backdrop. That's what they call it, a backdrop. And so I'm just trimming the edges there, so you can see now we have the little trees in the background, which I think is such a cute thing. It just adds something, which I love. Now, this is where I suddenly went, oh, because how am I going to stick that in there? I mean, flat like that would be fine. And then because the original idea, was that I would make this into a shaker card. So now that I've got my missing tree, I suddenly went, oh, how am I going to actually stick that tree on if I make it into a shaker card? In hindsight, if I had a shaker card, like a proper shaker card, I would have a piece of acetate there and I could just stick it to the acetate. So stupid me, should have thought that through. And then because I didn't think that quickly, I found another way to do this. But you could also just add some 3D foam, which I will do because I thought I knew what I was doing at this point. And you could actually just make it almost like a diorama. So it doesn't have to be a shaker card per se, but you could still lift that. So stick the piece I'm putting some tape on now, which is kind of like the sky. You could stick that flat, and then around the edges of the rest of the piece, you could add some foam tape, which you will see me do. And you can then lift it up to create like more of a diorama, so it's got a bit of depth in the background. So those trees are sort of on the hillside, but there's still depth behind that again. That's where having a broken tree doesn't work, because I can't stick it to anything unless I tried to cut a really tiny piece of foam tape, which I wasn't going to do. So I've got my card base, a standard A2 size card base, and I've turned it upside down so that I can line up where to put my sky, if you like. So I'm not sticking the main backdrop down as such yet. I'm trying to stick in the sky piece. And this is where I was thinking that I would still make it into either a shaker or into just a 3D diorama kind of effect, which is why I put all the foam tape on. And then you will see very badly that doesn't work because I got nowhere to put that damn tree. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. So you could do this. You could easily do this. And if I'd thought quick enough, I could have actually, done something else with the tree or put something in its place so that it wasn't obvious there was a missing tree. There's lots of things you could have done. But at the time, I just didn't. This is just what happened. So I thought I'd share this with you guys because there's a couple of extra ideas in there that you could still use if you don't make a boo-boo like I did. But anyway, it turns out cute in the end. So, yeah. So this is just something like height-wise. I think it's only about 1 mil thick foam tape from Crafter's Companion. And so you see, putting it on just a little bit of foam gives it a little bit of depth straight away. So you can even sort of see that in the camera. So I carried on because I thought this was what I was going to do and added some foam to the sort of base pieces. And in the end, I really it was when I realised about my tree and I was like, oh no, I can't put the tree on. I decided to obviously take it apart, but yeah, that's life. Things happen. So these are all the pieces that I've stamped and coloured already. The colours will be below the video as well, but I didn't do that on camera and I used my scan and cut to cut them all out. Worked out really, really well, actually. Putting them together, colouring and then cutting them out. They cut out pretty well. The tree I had to draw a couple of lines around it because it's very spindly. So for the scan and cut, it kind of picks up everything. So it's very clever, but at the same time, when you've got an image like that, you need to kind of close areas off so that it knows that it's got to go around it, not into it. So yeah, but it cut it out pretty well. So as you saw there, I took all the tape off. I didn't do all of that on camera because that's just like waiting for paint to dry. So I took it all off and then stuck it flat. And this way I can then stick my tree back on. And the 2 trees I cut off the edge that were sort of under the sort of frame edge, if you like, the white edge. I actually stuck them on top of, so it overlaps the frame, and you'll see that in a second. So they weren't hidden then underneath that sort of framed edge. I don't know what else to call it. It's been a weird day and I'm not very well, so anyway, so I'll get the 2 little trees on as well as the little broken one, and he kind of works out fine. You don't even notice it in the end. You can't really, I mean, you can see that there's a tree there, but you can't, like, you'd know if it was missing, but you can't notice that it's a boo-boo that I fixed. Well, you all know that, but hopefully nobody else will know that. Anyway, so sticking the little trees on, and I just think it adds to that because it sort of extends that border slightly outside, just gives it a little bit of, just a little bit of something else. And then my tree, this is where I was trying to decide where to put everything. I had a rough idea, but like with everything, it sort of seemed to change as I was doing this. So the first thing I did do was these little like lights are made to go around his antlers, and I thought they're so cute. And I believe in the die set there is actually a die that will cut them out as well, so that you can actually hook them around. I got to say I was really impressed with my machine because I didn't know that it was going to cut out that well, and it did, and they actually hook around really nicely. So that was just a happy accident because I thought about it beforehand, but like everything else, I just went with it and then suddenly remembered that was what I needed to do. So it worked out really, really nicely. So for the 2 deers, I decided to put them off to the left. One sitting down with those lights tangled in his antlers. I think it's so funny. And then the his little friend coming over to check on him. Then the tree I decided to put further down. I was going to have the tree in the middle so that it, they could all be sort of surrounding the tree, but it wasn't really working out like that. So I just went with it, and I like how it turned out. Just one of those things you've got to play around with, but that's the nice thing when you're building a scene, is you get to play around with where you want to put everything before you actually stick anything down. So I had a good idea in my head. I had a couple of ideas, I suppose, and then I got them actually stuck on. And some of it was just as I was going, I was like, oh, well, let's, put this here or there or whatever. But it's up to you. You do what works for you. And then I got the ladder and the little bird. I thought the bird was cute to be putting the star on the tree. That's the word. I couldn't think of the word. And then the presents under the tree, of course. You can't not have presents under the tree. And then I decided to put the little squirrel slightly in front of the presents, because that way it looks like the tree and that is slightly behind them. And because of the height, like of where what am I trying to say? The hillside in the background, the first hillside, where the top curve is, makes it look like the deer are sitting slightly further back as well. So it's just little things like that. Then getting some of the little baubles on the tree, and I also coloured these in sort of more traditional, well, I say traditional for me, old-fashioned, like 70s, 80s kind of, lighting for the trees. And that blue in the bottom right, below the bird, that blue is very much like the blue that you used to get on the those really old-fashioned fairy lights for the trees, for Christmas trees. It always reminds me of it. So I had to do them in that sort of colour tone. I just thought that worked really well. And then the 2 little squirrels are having a little chat, and he's, dedicating his love to her, of course. And then the funny thing with these little hats, I didn't realise, but the hats only go one way. So I made enough hats for all of them, but actually the hats, because they go one way, or they tilt one way, I didn't feel like they worked on some of the characters. Is that weird? So the bird got one of the deers, and then one of the squirrels, but the other two, they're just hanging out without a hat. It's just the way it worked out. But it just, otherwise it looked a bit weird that the hat was going the wrong way. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. So then I have one of the little acorn presents that I put under the tree. And then, of course, this little squirrel couple, he's got a little acorn present for his love. So he's giving that to her. And then, again, the mistletoe, I didn't know where to put that. That was driving me mad. Because I thought, I haven't got a branch to hang it, because I think that was the idea at some point. But I have no branch. This is the outside scene, but there's no branch. So, yeah. So I just added the other little acorn prezi. And I think I've said before, stamp more than you think you're going to need. So I, even like with the acorns and that, I stamped a couple of them, coloured the ribbons different colours. It meant that I had an extra one if I wanted it. So I just popped a couple of the extras, things like that, over to the left. It's all outside scene, so it's okay if it's just popped off on its own kind of thing. So for the most part, that's the scene done. And I will give you a close-up at the end, or a closer look at the end. So for the sentiment, I also took it from the same stamp set, and I wanted it in 2 different colours. I thought, let's just bring more colour into this rather than just a black sentiment or a brown sentiment. Those are very standard, if you like, and I use that an awful lot. But I just thought, it's a Christmas card, it's got lots of colour on it, there's lots of white space as well, so I thought actually a colourful sentiment for a change for me would be quite nice. So I grabbed the sentiments, and then the nice thing about Lawn Fawn sentiments in particular is that they are cut out in a way that you can butt them up next to each other, and they'll line up, and the space in between each word, by doing that, will be the right spacing. So that I love as well. A lot of companies, I think, probably do a similar thing, but I know definitely Lawn Fawn, they've got a knack for that. So I decided to, while I was on a Lawn Fawn kick, grab some Lawn Fawn inks. I have the minis of theirs. And if it's a new stamp, what I would say, and this is what happened here, which is why I'm going to clean this off, even though I've just inked it. With a brand new stamp, sometimes the ink will bead up on the stamp, so it'll make like little, almost like droplets. So it's just because it's a brand new stamp, it's not conditioned, it's probably got a bit of machine oil on it or something like that. So just either stamp it and then stamp it onto a piece of paper first, or clean it off like I did and then re-ink it and stamp it, and it should be fine. So this one says, "May your Christmas be cheery and bright." Because why wouldn't it be if you got those dudes in your backyard? Anyway, so then of course I decided to take, I'm using these a lot lately, the little things from Lucy's cards, the itty bitty stars, iridescent, I think that's what it's called. And I just dotted a load of glue dots all over, just random, or as random as I can get. And then I just pick them up with a little embellishment wand and just stick them on. And it's amazing how these tiny little things, like at the moment you can't really see them, but in real life, when you tilt it, and hopefully I'll catch this on camera enough for you guys, when you actually tilt it in real light, it reflects and just is that iridescent mother of pearl kind of thing going on, and it's just stunning. So it's so cool. So like I say, I've used them on Halloween cards, I've used them on Christmas cards, I've used them on all sorts. And the reason I love them is because they are neutral. So if you're starting out with a new product or a new thing that you want to try, if it's got like a metallics or it's got neutrals like the clears or that sort of thing, go with those, because that'll tell you whether you're going to like the product, but it'll also go with a number of different things that you make. So the next thing I did was I took a clear Sakura jelly roll pen. This is a sparkle pen, but it is a clear pen, and it's got like a gold hint of like glitter in it, or shimmer I should say. And so I grabbed this. I do have like the Nouveau Aqua Shimmer, I think it's called, and the Spectrum Noir Clear Sparkle, I think it's called. Those are great. They're like a pen, like a brush pen kind of thing with the same idea. But when you want to get into really teeny tiny places, I think the Sakura pens are just spot on, and really something I think that everybody should have in their stash because it's so easy to use. I've had them for years as well. They're not expensive. And then this is also a Sakura pen, but this is the glaze pen in black for their eyes. It just brings them to life. It makes a huge difference. And then of course I will go over with some Nouveau Crystal Glaze. You could use glossy accents as well, but I think my nozzle's blocked. So, yeah, can't use that one at the moment. And when you're making a video, it's just easier to have something that actually works. Anyway, so what I did was I went over some of the things that had sparkled, because I think that glaze over the top of something with shimmer underneath is stunning. It's one of my favourite things. And then I also used it just as a glaze over some of the presents and just some other bits, so that it just had that extra bit of something. And also I tried to balance across the card where I had bits of glaze so that it balanced out and I wasn't just missing something. So hopefully now you can see the sparkle in those little stars, and also the shine and shimmer that's coming off some of the other bits, the hats and those little ornaments and things like that. This was a cool card to make. This was a work in progress because of the issues I had at the beginning. But I hope you create some cute little scenes, and I hope this gives you some ideas for your Christmas cards if you haven't started them already. We are in October, I'm just saying. So I hope that you enjoyed this, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.